Long ago, when the world was still soft and gods walked the earth in forms that made men weep just to look at them, a new kind of god was born, not from a womb, not from the sea, not from the darkness beneath the world, but from the head of the King of Heaven himself. She did not cry out at her first breath. She did not reach for a mother's hand. She opened her gray eyes the color of storm clouds over olive groves, and she was already fully grown, already armed, already wise. Her name was Athena. In the time before memory, Zeus had swallowed his first wife, Medes, the goddess of cunning and deep thought, because a prophecy had warned him that any son born to her would overthrow him as he had overthrown his own father. He opened his mouth and he swallowed her whole, and the world waited. But Medes was not destroyed. She was patient. She wove armor inside the belly of the king of the gods. She sharpened a spear. And when the time came, the pressure became unbearable, a headache that split the sky itself. And Zeus roared, and Hephaestus took an axe and struck his head. And out of that wound, leaping fully formed with a war cry that shook the mountains, came Athena. She wore golden armor. She carried a shield fringed with serpents, and she stepped down from the broken skull of her father onto the earth, already a virgin, already a warrior, already a weaver, already a judge. The other gods stared. They had never seen anything born like this, without childhood, without weakness, without the slow education of time. She knew everything she needed to know the moment her feet touched the ground. And what she knew was this: wisdom is not the same as intelligence. Wisdom is knowing when to fight, when to weave, and when to simply wait. She was not a gentle goddess. The stories that soften her into a kind of bookish ant are wrong. She was called Pallas Athena, and she had already killed her childhood friend Pallas in a sparring match gone wrong, or in grief, depending on the version, and she kept the name as a wound she refused to close. She was called Athena Primachos, the one who fights at the front, and her spear cast a shadow over Athens that citizens could see from the harbor. She was called Glaucopes, the owl-eyed, not because she was cute, but because owls see in darkness that blinds everyone else. Her birth made her unique among the Olympians. She had no mother, she had never been a child. She had never been vulnerable in the way that even Zeus, who was hidden in a cave as an infant, had once been vulnerable. This gave her a kind of coldness, a distance, a clarity that the other gods found unsettling. She did not fall in love. She did not lose herself in rage. She did not chase mortals through the woods in borrowed shapes. When she appeared to humans, she appeared as herself, gray-eyed, calm, armored, asking only for their best thinking. And when they disappointed her, she did not scream or curse. She simply turned away, and that turning away was worse than any thunderbolt. There was a weaver named Arachne, a mortal girl whose skill with the loom was so famous that nymphs left their rivers to watch her work. Arachne grew proud. She boasted that she could outweave Athena herself, that her hands were faster, her eye truer, her patterns more beautiful. The old women who came to her workshop warned her, "Be careful, child. The gods hear everything." Arachne laughed and said, "Let her come." Athena came not as a goddess in glory, but as a gray-haired crone leaning on a stick, her fingers gnarled with age. She stood at Arachne's loom and offered advice, gently, kindly, as an old woman might. Arachne told her to mind her own business. So Athena threw off her disguise and stood revealed, terrible, beautiful, her armor blazing, her gray eyes fixed on the girl who had dared to compare herself to a god. The contest began. Athena wove the story of the gods and their power, Poseidon striking the earth, Zeus throwing lightning, the punishments of mortals who had grown too proud. Her tapestry was perfect, precise, and terrifying. Arachne wove the stories the gods did not want told, Zeus as a bull, as a swan, as a shower of gold, deceiving and raping mortal women. Her tapestry was also perfect. It was more than perfect. It was truth, and truth has a beauty that even the gods cannot deny. Athena could not punish Arachne for being better, but she could punish her for the pride that had started the whole thing. She tore the tapestry to shreds. She struck Arachne across the face, and Arachne, in her shame and her rage, took a rope and tried to hang herself from the beam of her own loom. Athena caught her, and then the stories say she turned Arachne into a spider. "You will hang forever," Athena said, "and you will weave forever, and your children will weave after you, and no one will ever tear your web apart without destroying it. But you will be small. That is the price." Arachne spins still, and every time you see a spider's web glistening with morning dew, you are looking at a girl who was better than a goddess and was punished for it. There was a mortal named Medusa, but that story is not Athena's alone. Medusa was a priestess in Athena's temple, beautiful and proud, and Poseidon desired her. He took her in the temple on the floor before the altar in the sacred space that belonged to the virgin goddess. When Athena learned of this, she did not punish Poseidon. He was her uncle, one of the three great kings, and no one punishes the sea. Instead, she punished Medusa. She turned her hair into serpents. She made her face so terrible that any man who looked at her would turn to stone. And Medusa, who had been a victim, became a monster, and Perseus cut off her head years later, and from her neck sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, because even in death, she gave birth to beauty. This is not a kind story. Athena is not a kind goddess. And yet, she was the protector of heroes, not because she loved them, but because she loved strategy, and heroes were pieces on a board. She guided Perseus through Medusa's cave. She helped Cadmus found Thebes. She stood beside Diomedes in the Trojan War, driving his chariot into the god Ares himself, and watched as Diomedes wounded the god of war with a mortal spear. She loved Odysseus, the cunning one, the liar, the man of many turnings, because he thought before he acted. She appeared to him in dreams, in disguises, as a young girl, as an old friend, as a shepherd. She guided his son Telemachus across the sea to find news of his father. And when Odysseus finally stood in his own hall, covered in the blood of the suitors he had killed, she was there, holding her shield over him, saying, "Now you are home." She gave Athens the olive tree, striking the Acropolis with her spear and causing the first olive to grow, a gift of oil and wood and peace, while Poseidon offered a salt spring that was wild and useless. The Athenians chose her gift. They named their city for her. And though Poseidon cursed them with floods, they never regretted their choice. Her temple on the Acropolis, the Parthenon, was the most beautiful building the world had ever seen. Inside stood her statue, 40 feet tall, covered in gold and ivory, holding Nike, the winged goddess of victory, in her palm. For 1,000 years that statue glowed in the morning light. It is gone now. The temple is a ruin, but the olive trees she planted still grow on the hill, and some of them are more than 2,000 years old, and they still bear fruit. Athena does not age. She cannot. She was born fully formed, and she will remain fully formed until the last story ends. But in the modern world, she has become something strange, a symbol of wisdom on university seals, a face on coins, a statue in front of courthouses with her scales of justice. People have forgotten that she carries a spear, that her shield has the head of Medusa on it, that the owl is not a kindly bird but a predator whose wings make no sound. She is the goddess of weaving and of war. She is the inventor of the flute, the plow, the ship, the chariot, the bridle, and the trumpet. She is the patron of every craftsman who thinks before he cuts, of every general who wins without fighting, of every student who stays up late reading by candlelight, because the answer is in there somewhere, and she will not sleep until she finds it. Athena stands on the edge of Olympus, her gray eyes fixed on something no one else can see. The other gods drink and quarrel behind her. She does not turn around. She is thinking. She is always thinking. And somewhere below on the earth she helped to shape, a girl is learning to weave, a soldier is learning to wait, a scholar is learning to doubt her own certainty, and Athena watches them all with the same expression, not love, not cruelty, but recognition. They are using her gifts. That is enough. She does not ask for worship. She asks only that you think before you act, that you measure twice and cut once, that you know when to fight and when to walk away. And if you fail, if you are arrogant like Arachne, if you break your oaths like so many mortals do, she will not strike you dead. She will simply turn away. And her turning is colder than any winter because it means you were not worth her at.